For joining us this evening for the last of the City Council Candidates Forums sponsored by Missoula Neighborhoods and the League of Women Voters of Missoula. My name is Jennifer Copley, and I'm a board member of the Missoula League of Women Voters and a former member of my neighborhood council. I'd like to begin this forum by reading the League of Women Voters Land Acknowledgement Statement. The League of Women Voters of Missoula acknowledges that we gather on the traditional lands of the Salish, Kootenai, Kalispel, Pend Oreille, Blackfeet, and Shoshone tribes. The voting rights of these people were not secured until the 1960s, 40 years after the 19th Amendment secured the right to vote for some women. The League is committed to protecting equal access to voting and resisting efforts to disenfranchise. I'd like to thank Kalina Pritchard and Melissa Gluck of the Missoula's Neighborhood Councils for coordinating this forum, our League of Women Voters volunteers, and MCAT for broadcasting. I'd also like to thank our candidates for their willingness to serve Missoula and for participating in tonight's forum. We have a live audience tonight in the City Council chamber, and I ask the audience to hold their applause until the end of the forum to maximize the time the candidates have to answer questions. Tonight's forum features candidates from Ward 4 and 6. Ward 4 covers much of South Missoula, including the Fairviews Patty Canyon area, the Lewis and Clark neighborhood, and Moose Can Gully. The candidates for Ward 4 are Alan Ault and Amber Sherrill. Ms. Sherrill is the incumbent City Council member. Ward 6 includes the Franklin to the Fort neighborhood, River Road, and the Two Rivers area. The candidates for Ward 6 are Sean Patrick McCoy and Sandra Vasecka. Ms. Vasecka is the incumbent. Okay. This forum follows the nonpartisan, unbiased, and impartial format established by the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, nonprofit membership organization. We never support candidates or political parties. The purpose of this forum is to give Missoula voters an opportunity to submit written questions to the candidates and hear the candidates' responses. Audience members may write a question on the cards provided. We will collect them, and people also have the opportunity to submit questions to the Missoula's Neighborhood website by noon today, and I have them in blue in my little stacks, and they'll be a priority. Candidates will be asked as many questions as time permits. There may not be enough time to ask all the questions submitted, and the questions will be submitted for duplication. All candidates will answer each question. Each candidate will have the same amount of time to respond, thanks to our trusty timekeepers, and responses will be strictly timed to ensure fairness. Candidate responses will rotate, so each candidate will have a chance to speak first and last. Just before this evening's forum, we drew candidates' numbers from a list to determine the speaking order. We will start with opening statements, followed by questions, and ending with closing statements. So we begin with 2-minute opening statements from our candidates. The speaking order is Ward 4, Amber Sherrill. Number 1, Ward 2, Alan Ault. Ward 4, number 2, Alan Ault. Ward 6, Sandra Vasecka, you'll be number 3. And Sean Patrick McCoy, Ward 6, you will be our fourth speaker with the opening statements. So if you'd like to begin, please, Amber.
Thanks, and thank you for holding this forum. Enjoyed it 4 years ago and have been looking forward to it tonight. My husband and I moved here in 2000. We have 2 college-age daughters. We have 2 rescue dogs. I like to trail run and hike and ski, and I have spent most of my life in different capacities in conservation as well as business. I serve on the Missoula Economic Partnership Board, on the Missoula City-County Health Board, which I did during COVID. I am the Conservation, Climate, and Parks Chair. I served on the Midtown Master Planning Committee. I currently serve on the Transform Brooks Committee. I'm on the Renewable Rate Option Team. And I was on the City Leadership Team during COVID. Last time when I ran, I said that I was doing it as kind of the second phase of community engagement, almost volunteerism, because I've done a lot of that in my life. This time I'm doing it because I feel that I have a skill set that I've developed over the last 4 years that I look forward to keeping on council. I think we're at a time with big changes in leadership that we need to retain some experience on council. And I kind of feel like I finally understand the work that I'm doing. The primary things that I am, this goes fast, okay. I have a lot more to say. The primary issues that I'm concerned with and that I'm campaigning on are climate change mitigation, tax reform, and housing. And those are what drives me to pick those, is I think those are one of the most important issues of our time and in our community. I need to stop. Okay.
Thank you, Amber. Alan?
Well, good evening. I'm Alan Ault, Ward 4 candidate. I moved, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Missoula neighborhoods for this opportunity. And yeah, it was 4 years ago we were talking with you and meeting like this. We moved here, we bought our house in 1999, moved here in 2020, and, or 2000. And we just absolutely love it here. And what I've done, I've been, in fact, I was on the Government Study Commission in 2006, and I've been a CASA volunteer. That's very, very interesting. I've been a big brother. I started a nonprofit to keep kids off the street. It was Montana Auto Tech, and we took kids, and it took us 14 years to do this, but what we did is we took kids in, had a number of businesses, we brought them all together to work with kids to train them in auto mechanics. If you go by Sentinel High School, you'll see the car shop behind there. There's like 8 bays, and that's what our end result was. We brought mechanics back in school. I'm running for office because the city has a lot of problems right now, and with my background being a retired businessman, I was a troubleshooter for an oil and chemical company, and I'm focusing in on our taxes and our homeless population. I think that's our 2 big problems, and that's in Ward 4 and all throughout the city. And I want to be very active in resolving those 2 issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Sandra?
Thank you, and thank you everybody for coming tonight, and thank you for having this forum for us. I'm Sandra Vasecka. I graduated from high school, from Sentinel High School, and then I followed my brother to Montana State University. But before I went to Montana State, I fell in love with a guy from Potomac, so who went to Hellgate. So I came back to Missoula, and we are now married and have a 2.5-year-old little boy, and that's a handful. But just wanted to say why I ran for council in the first place about 4 years ago, and that was when my husband and I first got married. We were wondering why houses were so expensive. So I went down a rabbit hole, and then I was like, oh, property taxes, what's the deal with that? So I went down a rabbit hole of why property taxes are so high. And then after figuring out why the property taxes were so high, because of a lot of intricacies that have to do with local government budgeting, I decided that something has to be done about fiscal responsibility. And then I was looking for somebody in my life that could do that, to run for council, and turns out well, if you can't find anybody, then I guess you got to do it yourself. So that's why I ran. And this is my 4th year on council. I am the incumbent. I am currently on the Business License Appeal Board. I am the Vice Chair of Public Safety, Health, and Operations. I'm on the Local Emergency Planning Committee. I'm on the Missoula River Valley Transportation Committee. And I also became the unofficial liaison for the Missoula Human Trafficking Task Force, because I learned about it when I took the Citizens Law Enforcement Academy my first year, and I did not realize how rampant that is in our Missoula community. And that was very near and dear to my heart, because it was people my age and younger that are getting trafficked. And I was very concerned about that. And since there was no official position for that, I just decided to become that. So that's why I'm the unofficial liaison for Missoula Trafficking Task Force. I would really like to keep my position. Like Amber said, it takes a lot to get your feet underneath you. It's like a fire hose. And I finally, after 2 years, feel like I know what's going on, and I would like to continue this job. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. And finally, Sean.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Missoula neighborhoods for this, as well as the League of Women Voters, and for our audience members here. Also just wanted to thank the League of Women Voters for their decades of service to our communities around the nation, really. My name is Sean McCoy, and I'm running for Ward 6. And a little background on me: I'm originally from southeast Idaho, Pocatello. I'm a veteran, fought wildland fire for several years, and I've been in and out of Missoula my entire life. My dad's from northern Idaho, so we had family, whatnot here. Many folks know me today through our farm. We run a small farm right here in Missoula called Frank's Little Farm. That's my family, my partner, my wife, and our 2 kids. So we have 2 kids, 9 and 6, and we're the operators of Frank's Little Farm. And why I am running for city council is because I feel like I've spent my entire life in service to my community. That starts with my service as a veteran, wildland fire, activism, and journalism through college, and then some of my most humbling service to my community has been as a farmer. And I have been on the planning board, the Missoula Consolidated Planning Board, for 3 years now, and I sit on as the chair, and I've gotten a real taste for looking at what's going on with the city, and I see that there is a need for leadership within city council, and I bring a very unique style of leadership, having a background such as mine that is really focused on not just being a great leader, but bringing everyone around you together and finding their greatest potential to be better leaders. And that's what I would like to bring to city council, and those are the qualities I feel like I bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. We now move to questions submitted by the public. The questions fall into several broad categories, and you can see them divided on the desk before me. I'll try to divide up the time so that we get to every category. And if you'd like me to repeat a question, please let me know. Each of you in your opening statements described a series of skills and contributions to this community. The community is very diverse. Would you please explain what is unique about you and your experience that will make your voice and opinion an important addition to a city council in a diverse community? We begin, please, with Sean.
Great, thanks. Oh, that's a great question. That's a little different. So I think one of the things that is unique to me is my ability to connect and talk with anybody. I have not only family members and friends that fall on today's spectrum of both sides of the political aisle, and I'm able to connect with them. And the same thing I find on the doors. I am able to connect with people no matter how different our viewpoints may be. I find commonality with them, and we're able to make progress and common ground to find solutions or ideas, more importantly, to take on an issue. And that is the unique perspective I think I can bring to the job, is the ability to make coalitions and get people to work together. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Sandra.
Yeah, I have to echo. That was an awesome question. I'm very happy somebody asked that. So My mother is she doesn't really discuss her political views, but I suspect that she is on the left, and my father is on the right, and the majority of my family is on the left, and I lean more libertarian. And we all get along very well because we have great discussions and compromises, and we figure out what we don't go us against them, it's us against the problem. And it's really fun for family reunions, and it's really fun for barbecues because then we figure out what we can do. I've had my mind changed many times at those family barbecues and on the floor. I've actually had my mind changed on the floor before. I also have a lot of experience with volunteering. I volunteered at the Bozeman Food Bank when I was in college. When I was in high school, I volunteered at the animal shelter. My husband is a small business owner. I used to work in insurance. I now work at a periodontist office. So I see all different realms of the community. And I feel like all of my private business work, as well as my family intricities, all of my family dialogue, I feel like that brings a very unique perspective and how I can get along with anybody, even if we disagree.
Thank you. Alan.
I forgot to mention I was on the planning board too. Anyway, in my career, how's this for diversity? As a business manager, I lived in Aruba for 2 years. My son was born there. I lived in South Korea for 5 years, and then I worked in Saudi Arabia for over 10 years. In those positions, my staff consisted of, I had Sri Lankans, Indians, Colombians, Koreans, Saudis, a full, and Americans and Brits. I was the president of the Arabian Kennel Club. You talk about diversity and working with people, and I managed to pull things together. In Korea, my entire staff, I had 25 people. They were all Korean, and I was their supervisor. So, I've had some unique problems with working and learning to work with people, and it's made me the person who I am today. So,
thank you, Ellen. We move to Amber.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a middle-aged, straight white woman. I mean, I know that I do not have the lived experience that many people have. I do think for this role, though, listening matters. Collaboration matters. I think experience matters. I listed all the different boards and commissions and things I didn't list everything I've done, but I listed a lot of them. I think that I understand that I am not an expert in everything, and I understand that I need to figure out who knows more than I do. Also, good ideas come from every place. Sandy and I have that we don't agree on very many things, but we once in a while we do, and we are, I think, both willing to collaborate when that happens. So gosh, this time goes so fast. I'm a good researcher, and I'm a good listener, and I definitely understand that this job requires reaching out to people that know more than I do about different topics.
Thank you, Amber. The issues facing this community are many and complex. How do you stay informed about city issues and your constituent concerns, as well as the complex issues upon which the City Council is already working? We begin, please, with Alan.
It's a big part of it. It's all about communications, and you have to have two-way communications. If I get on City Council, I'm going to keep reading up on things, finding out what the community, do some door knocking, but attend community meetings and be a part of them so I can hear what my constituents are saying and what they're complaining about. So it's all about communications. One of the things that I hear on door knocking is people say, boy, with this current city council, I'm just kept in the dark. I don't know what's going on. And for example, parts of wards 5 and 6 are now in Ward 4. And when I tell people, you're now in Ward 4, they said, what? When did that happen? I didn't know that. So I think it's a two-way communication, and people aren't hearing enough from the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Amber?
Yeah, thanks. Sitting on city council, I think the biggest piece of understanding the issues and keeping up on the issues are simply attending meetings, reading the materials. We have lots of material that we need to read before our Wednesday meetings. Most of our work is done on Wednesdays. If people come to Monday night and they think that they don't get a lot of detail, they should watch on Wednesday. I think researching topics, I think looking, at many communities around the country are dealing with housing problems. Many communities are dealing with homelessness. They are dealing with being understaffed for businesses being understaffed. So I think we can learn from other communities. Our mobile support team was an idea that we took from Eugene, Oregon, and it's been super successful. So I think there's the ability to look across state lines to different ideas. I'm always available by email or phone call, and I'm on the phone all the time with constituents.
Thank you. We move to Sean.
Great, thank you. So how do I stay up on things regarding the community? So first of all, I am a news junkie, and I'm a both sides of the aisle news junkie. I listen to, both things. I read a lot of newspapers. And then as far as like community goes, I have the unique position of getting to talk to people a lot. Our farm stand has lots of customers. I'm at farmers market on most weekends. So I get a lot of opportunities to engage with people one-on-one and talk about what is on their mind. And I'm usually willing to give people a lot of time. I also think Alan was hitting on something that's really important, and that's community events and connecting with all the different groups within your ward or within your community. And for me, that goes across partisan lines. I'm not interested in where you're leaning. I'm more interested in what your group is thinking and feeling and how they would like to take things on. So a lot about outreach. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sandra?
Thanks. Yeah, it is very complex. There is, the last Monday's meeting, I think if you downloaded the PDF, it was over 1,000 pages of material. So that's why it's really important to look at the Wednesday meeting and follow the Wednesday meetings, because that is when a lot of the things happen. And one of the ways, the main way that I do stay involved with my constituent concerns is they email me, they call me, even if they're not in my ward. If they feel like their ward representatives aren't getting back to them fast enough, I will absolutely return their call, even if they don't agree with my opinion. I still get an answer. Jim Nugent the previous attorney, Jim Nugent, he had to answer a lot of my emails all the time, as well as Lee Griffin, because I email them constantly. And I research a lot of topics. I ask a lot of questions. I even reached out to the mayor of, I guess he's the mayor of Bozeman, the mayor of Anchorage, for their homeless issue, because I heard an interesting fact about that. Have not gotten that call returned yet. I reached out to all the Kalispell representatives and have not gotten a response back from that yet either. So I reach out with a lot of questions, and I'm hoping to get their answers back if they will hear this message.
Thank you. All of us following the news see a nation filled with a failure to collaborate and to cooperate. At this local level, in this community, how do you plan to encourage cooperation and collaboration among this city council and its members to achieve common goals? We begin, please, with Sandra.
I'm so happy that you asked that question. I'm very happy that I'm first, because on Monday, a thing that Rule 4, I've been really frustrated about for about 3 years. And finally, after deliberation and talking with all of my colleagues and the previous two, or the late Mayor John Engen and the interim Mayor Jordan Hess and everybody around this horseshoe, finally I was able to get some sort of a compromise to allow freedom of speech that I believed was freedom of speech within council chambers. So it took me 3 years to do that, and finally on Monday we made some progress, and I had a unanimous vote on Wednesday and on Monday, and we all compromised with something that we're all comfortable with. It takes time, it takes determination, and it takes a willingness to compromise. And I feel like everybody on this horseshoe even though we don't particularly agree with each other politically, we all respect each other intellectually, and we respect each other's families and their lives and all of that, and we respect each other as human beings. So I think that if you take that into consideration, then who knows what can be done. You can change the world.
Thank you. Sean?
So I think within regards of local collaboration and how that can lead the way to show our nation and our national leaders a better path, it begins with listening and collaboration. And I really think that as leaders, we need to show that we're making choices that promote, unification. Our leaders today seem to choose divisiveness and rhetoric that pits us once against another, and that's a choice. That's a leadership choice. And so I think in order to tackle these things at the lowest level, we have got to be making the effort to not only be kind to one another, but making sure that is visible to our constituents and showing that leadership and collaboration as a whole. That's a great example that Sandra gave, is the whole city council found a way to compromise. And so I think that is one of the things that I will definitely try and bring to the table, is that level of collaboration.
Thank you. Amber?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate both of the previous answers. There are 12 of us around this horseshoe, and we are the legislative branch. It is a very different role than being the mayor and being on the executive side of government. It is all about collaboration. It is all about working with your peers. So I think that that's really important. What I have found, even though we disagree many times on how to get to the end goal, many issues. I mean, I'm a Democrat. But many issues are nonpartisan at a local level. So I think that collaboration, I think listening to your constituents, and we make decisions for everyone in the city, so not just constituents, but listening to the people in Missoula, not just the people that come in and sometimes are the louder, but also balancing what I know and they don't know and listening to everyone.
Thank you. And Alan?
Cooperation and collaboration within the city council body. To me, the key is talk, discuss, listen. One of the key things that seems to be fleeting us lately, and this is the entire city, is the adage that you agree to disagree, and that's healthy. Disagreement is good because you know how the other people or person is thinking. So I really think it's communication, talking with each other, talking with the public, letting your opinions be known, because the bottom line is we all have a common goal in doing what's best for the city, and we must never take our eye off of that. And like I've heard, there's different ways of getting to that goal. So again, it's discussion, active discussion, agree to disagree, and to me, that's the key.
Thank you. A citizen submitted a question today that's fairly specific. They want to know, what do DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives mean to you? And how would you like to see the city move forward with them? Amber, would you like to tackle that first, please?
Yeah, I think that, diversity, equity, inclusion means that everyone has a voice at the table, and many of those voices are not heard as easily as other voices, whether that's the ability to come in, whether that's the ability to sit in one of these seats. There are a lot of unheard voices. So I think that trying our best to include those perspectives and those voices is really important in making city decisions. I think one of the, I think the justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion program it's complicated. It's hard. I mean, I think that it's something that we are struggling with figuring out exactly how we do it, but I think it is a worthy thing to be struggling toward. As far as what we can do on the ground here is that we can update our non-discrimination ordinance, and I think that we need to do that. I was not on council when that passed, but it passed a couple of years ahead of my time. And so I think it's a worthy cause to continue to endeavor to move forward.
Thank you. Alan?
That's the JEDI program, which a lot of people don't understand. To me, with the justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's all about listening and mutual respect. The way I look at it, hey, we're all in this together. And, it's a shame that we have to pass laws to make sure that we get along, that we include people. It shouldn't be like that. To me and my thinking, again, we're all in this together. I see us as all equals. And, again, we're trying to do what's best for the people and what's best for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra?
Thanks. Yeah, like others mentioned, I believe that the person asking the question was talking about the JEDI program, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. But property taxes do not discriminate based on your race, your ethnicity, or your sexual orientation. And I am running for fiscal responsibility. Anything else is just out the window. It is all math. It is all math, spending, and expenditures and revenues. All the other studies that are happening, those are great ideas. However, we do not live in a utopia, and we will not get to a utopia if people are getting taxed out of their homes. And so that is my main concern at the moment, and we can discuss that once our debt has been mitigated, and once people have housing security of those folks who own their homes or people who are renting and do not have to foot that property tax bill with never increasing rent increases or property tax increases, and that is my main concern at the moment.
Thank you. And Sean, you get the last word on this round.
Great, thanks. So I like the JEDI program and support it. I think the JEDI program is one of our ways to address disenfranchisement. It's one of our ways to try and reach out to the people who, whether they're in a minority population or whether they're in a majority population, and they feel left out of the process. They don't feel communicated to, they don't feel connected with in some way. And that is part of what I see within that justice, diversity, equity, and inclusiveness is trying to remind us, as Alan is getting at, our social contract that we have together as Americans, and trying to help us reunite behind that so that we can tackle the issues that are in front of us, such as taxes, which are such a burden, or homelessness, or housing. So I think it's a worthwhile program to keep with. Thank you.
The second question on this round is a follow-up to the first. Are there specific underrepresented communities that you can identify, and how do you plan to engage and collaborate with these underrepresented communities to ensure that their voices are heard in the city's decision-making process? We begin, please, with Sean.
Yes, there are underrepresented communities. The first one that comes to mind is our Hmong community, who is part of our, a big part of this community here. I think you can also look at the LGBTQ plus community, our indigenous community, and, our homeless community, all lack of significant representation. And so I think it's important that we acknowledge that, and we are also remembering to work for those communities that might be smaller, right? They're more of a minority community, but they stand just as prominent in the community and need their representation as well. So I think there's a lot we can do for several of our community members. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Sandra.
Thanks. Yeah, for the specific underrepresented communities, a public commenter once said that those who do not enter this door, or now that we're virtual, they are, I'm paraphrasing here, but they are not using their voice that they have been granted. So the underrepresented communities are the people who do not come through that door and do not come to council meetings and do not voice their frustrations. Because I have seen folks from the homeless community, I have seen folks from the LGBTQ plus community, I have seen folks from all sorts of different communities come through that door and voice their concerns. So the only reason why they're underrepresented is because they do not voice their own concerns, and we cannot read their minds. You need to get up and you need to vote and you need to come out here and voice what you are concerned about, because like I said, we are not mind readers. You need to speak up for yourselves, and that's the only reason why they would be underrepresented.
Thank you, Sandra. Alan.
I'll tell you, I completely agree with Sandy said. How do you identify the underrepresented people unless they come forward and let you know that they're out there? And I've attended a number of meetings on Monday night, and I see a lot of these different members of the community voicing their opinions. And if I get on city council, you bet I'm going to listen and get involved with them and try to help them and see what we can do and how we can work together and how they can be better represented. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. And Amber.
Yeah, thanks. We have so many fabulous nonprofits in this community, and many of those are representing the underrepresented communities. So I definitely believe partnering with these nonprofits is a piece of this. And there is no question in my mind that we have many underrepresented people in Missoula, whether that's underrepresented on this body, on boards, even the ability to come here and having time to come here and getting childcare to come here. I don't believe just because they're not here on Monday night that they're well represented. So, you know, being cognizant of reaching out to those partners and listening to the partners in our community that are representing those constituents, I think is a big piece. I also believe trying to make sure that we have more equal representation on our boards and on this body would be great.
All right, thank you. As members of the City Council, you would work with a mayor and the mayor's administrative staff, as well as a city bureaucracy. How do you conceive this relationship between the council on which you seek to serve and the vaster administration? How would you deal with any potential conflict that might arise between the two branches of city government? Oh, forgive me, Alan, you're up first this round.
Well, you know, that is a hard question to answer because it hasn't happened yet. You know, we don't know what the problem would be and how to deal with the mayor or his staff or her staff. Again, it gets back to communication and listening. You know, we have our system of government is a strong mayor, and he puts together a budget, so on and so forth, and it's working with them. And if you disagree with the mayor, well, you want to let him or her know that you disagree and why, and how you can resolve it. But again, you know, it's first of all the city council as a body has to work together, and then if there's problems that they have with the mayor, then they work with the mayor to resolve it. So, thanks.
Thank you. Amber.
Yeah, thanks. In the past, I served as the executive director of Five Valleys Land Trust, and I had a large board that I answered to. And while that is not municipal government, it's similar. There's a similar structure that we have. We have the executive branch, and then we have the legislative branch, and absolutely conflicts come up all the time. But this body votes, I guess I'm sitting around the horseshoe, so I'm saying this body, it's not us, but the city council votes on there's not that many things the mayor can do without the city council's vote. So I think that it is important to have that relationship strong. I think it's important that you have good communication between this body and the executive branch. And I think of staff as being a resource to educating council and moving forward the priorities that we set.
Thank you. Sean?
Great, thank you. So let's see, not being the incumbent, I will have to speculate a little bit, but in my years of working with different organizations, particularly within government, it really it's collaboration and working together and finding ways to make that work. So within the city council, I'd like to see us working well and together as do the best we can, and a united front when we come to the mayor and want to work things out, and we want to do budget things, and we want to push back against something. I think there is a lot of room for city council to push back on budgets and to have some more, input on that. I also just think it's really important that the relationships that you build with the mayor's office are strong and amicable between the two of you. And then as far as city staff goes, just the utmost respect and constant reminder that they are the backbone to what we have going. They're the nuts and bolts, and they keep it all moving forward.
Thank you, Sean. Sandra?
Thanks. And just to follow up on what Sean said, the department heads, the mayoral staff, the mayor, all my colleagues, everyone else is the backbone to keep the government running. And I call, text, email department heads, staff, the mayor, my colleagues, constantly. And even if I disagree with them, I try to see it from another point of view, because maybe I'm getting something wrong. Maybe I'm not seeing it from a different perspective. So I always like to get everybody's information before I come to a conclusion. And even if I do disagree, I have a bi-weekly meeting with the mayor, and I will go into his office, we'll have a discussion, and then if it comes to a vote on a Wednesday or a Monday night, and we still disagree, I say, hey, I'm going to give you some pushback on this just to let you know. And then he says, all right, game on, let's do this. So, it's a very friendly attitude that we have going into it. We both believe that we're doing the best for the community, and I believe that we both believe that we're doing the best for our community. So I think that we should have just hashed it out on the floor, and we're all very open and friendly about it.
Thank you, Sandra. A citizen wants you now for a moment to reflect on your specific wards. What do you see as your ward's major challenges and assets? And how will you keep your finger on the pulse of your ward if elected? Sandra, would you begin this round, please?
All right. Well, without being able to think about it for a moment, let's see here. So our challenges, obviously, is the Johnson Street shelter. It has been technically moved to Ward 4 with the recent ward boundary change. However, since my first year on council 4 years ago, it was in my ward, so I still feel it like it's near and dear to my heart, and I have all of the neighborhood concerns, and they all constantly text and email. Actually, this year it hasn't been so bad. So the houseless issue is one of our biggest concerns. Also, infrastructure. Our streets are deteriorating, although I have to applaud Brian Hensel for doing Wyoming Street and Curtis and Davis, because that was amazing. Our sidewalks could use improvement. We do have great parks, and we do have the Milwaukee Trail that goes through, and I love that. That is awesome. We do have a great bus route. I've only ridden it a few times, but every time I try to do it quarterly, because I never really have the need to ride a bus, but I've been pretty critical of the bus system. So I always say, don't knock it till you try it. So I keep trying to do a quarterly reevaluation of it. And so that's my answer.
Thank you, Sandra. Sean?
Thank you. To echo Sandra a lot, I think we're both looking at the same thing, the houseless shelter on Johnson and North there, whether it's in Ward 6 or not. It is a huge concern for Ward 6 constituents. I hear it in the Franklin to Fort neighborhoods, knocking doors day in and day out, even above the tax burden that is currently currently facing most homeowners. It stands out above that for people. So I think that will be one of the biggest issues for Ward 6 and 4 and 5, and working that out with their fellow city council members. And then again, the nuts and bolts, infrastructure, sidewalks, paving the streets, plowing the streets, right? Getting our streets shoveled and the sidewalks. And I honestly think Ward 6 is one of the best wards because of its mixed use, right? We had this in the last forum, who had the best wards. But we represent mixed use really well. We have a brewery, we have home resource, we have grocery stores, we've got it all. I gotta go.
Thank you, Amber.
Actually, Ward 4 is the best ward. I think we've gone back and forth about this. I think one time I said volleyball was the best sport, and all the other counselors' hands went up really quickly. I do agree with Sandy and Sean. The Johnson Street shelter it's actually a big issue for our entire community because of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, we cannot move people if we have no beds for them to go to. So opening the Johnson Street shelter was very important, even though I know it is a big taxing thing on that neighborhood. We need to figure out where we are going to put a permanent shelter. Johnson Street is not the right place. Beyond that, I've got lots of thoughts on things for the whole city, but a roundabout at Patty Canyon and Southwest Higgins is one of the things that I'm very worried about and we need to get done, as well as speeding in our neighborhoods. We're getting some of those roundabouts and speed bumps put in, but I think that's a big issue.
Right, thank you. Alan.
Well, I echo my compadres here about the Johnson Street. There's nothing much I can add to that. What we have going for Ward 4, the best ward, by the way, is our assets. We've got a tremendous view of the city. And like on the 4th of July, Whitaker Drive, after the fireworks are done, it's just a steady stream of cars coming down, cars and bicycles. We've got golf courses. We've got a lot of parks. So we've got a lot going for us. But then, we still have the problem of the taxes, the homeless, the Johnson Street, housing, speeding. We have the Whitaker Speedway and we have the High Park. I don't even know what you want to call it, but awful lot of traffic that goes through that high rates of speed, and that's a problem. So, and last but not least, we have a problem with deer carcasses. And I'll tell you, that concerns me because the way I look at it, when I see a deer carcass in the road, that could be a kid. So thank you.
Right. Thank you, Alan. Citizens now have written in today and asked for your views on the need for improved infrastructure citywide, not just speaking of your own wards in this case, specifically such things as expanded sidewalks, improved street signage and lane painting, effective dark sky compliant street lights. What do you think needs to be done, and what will you do to pursue development of infrastructure that you think is important? We begin, please, with Amber.
I keep thinking I get to go first, so I'm glad I'm finally first. Infrastructure is one of the more expensive things that we do. I think, in order to be competitive for federal grants, we need to be doing planning. So the Brooks, I'm on the Transform Brooks Planning Committee. The Midtown Master Plan was a big accomplishment. I think they did a great job. The RAISE grant that we got for downtown, that's not my ward specific, and that was $25 million. The Setupcane Mullen Area Master Plan we got a grant for $15 million for that area. So I think positioning ourselves to get federal funding is one of the big things that we can do, and we need to be doing a lot of planning in order for that to happen.
Thank you, Amber. Alan?
I think Traffic flow is a big problem in our city as the amount of traffic is increasing. I think we need to do a better job of timing our traffic signals. I think in a lot of the side streets, we still have side streets where there's intersections with no stop signs. And I think we need to do a better job of stop signs. I find it very curious that the issue with the Bear Tracks Bridge has kind of gone on the sidelines right before the election. It'll be interesting to see if that rears its ugly head after. With any of the infrastructure, we really need to get the input of our citizenry and the business leader. I think that's one area that we can improve in helping improve our infrastructure. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Alan. Sandra.
Thanks. So I think that the main things that make a city run are public safety, streets, and infrastructure. And so first being sidewalks. Sidewalks are very important for the public to get around. And we absolutely need some sidewalk reform because there is a huge debacle on council about within all city finances. Who actually owns a sidewalk? It is in purgatory. It is in the public right-of-way. However, the property owner is responsible for shoveling it. However, if they don't shovel it, then they get fined by the city. So who actually owns it? Who has the rights to it? There's a whole, I can go on for that forever. However, I wanted to talk about the street department because this last budget season, the street department had an ask in their budget for 6 full-time employees, 6 plows, and 6 de-icers. So I maneuvered the budget around to try and get 1 full-time employee, 1 de-icer, and 1 plow. And I got completely obliterated during that budget amendment season. I had 7 amendments, and they all got shut down. And I think that streets need to be a bigger priority for our budget.
Thank you, Sandra. Sean.
Great, thank you, and thanks for this question. This is a really important question that I don't think that a lot of people understand the importance of infrastructure, and not only for all the things that we're experiencing with the growth of our city, right? People speeding on our streets or cutting through our neighborhoods or all the issues we're running into there, but also its relationship to housing. And, as a member of the planning board, I have seen for years how we are building houses, we are building apartments without the infrastructure to support it. And that is something that's got to change. And so what I would like to work on and hope to do if I am elected to city council is looking at budgets, how we can cut and trim there, what we can do better, but also working towards the grants that we're alighted to from the federal level, but also pushing against the feds and the state, because infrastructure support from state and federal levels has decreased for years and years and years, and they've got to turn that around. We cannot handle this burden on our own as a municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. The past question dealt specifically with infrastructure. This question gives you a little bit more room for speculation. Have you thought about any other legislation you're interested in seeing the City Council enact? What would you like to see happen in the future? Sean, we begin with you.
Oh, dang. I'd like to have a second to think about that. So I think one of the things Sandra just brought up is tackling sidewalks. I'd like to see that happen. And I kind of let this out of the bag a little while ago. I have an idea about combining our farmers markets to create one market that is centered in town. That would be something a little more unique and outside of our big problems that I would look to go after and tackle, as well as perhaps as a farmer trying to find ways for us to preserve our agricultural lands to the best that we can, given the guidelines and the guardrails that are on city council members. And that's probably all I got off the top of my head. Thanks.
All right, Sandra. Thank you, Sean.
think so. One of these things that I've been really looking into for the past 4 years is a small thing, but it's large in a lot of families, is animal licenses, dog licenses. So, and I can't remember if it's Lake County or Flathead County, but you can get a lifelong license for your dog. And every year, it has to coincide with the rabies permit or rabies license. So that's 1 to 3 years. So if you get an older dog, like my dog passed away last year at the age of 14, I had to decide, is she going to live another year? Should I get the 3-year license? And why can't we just do a lifelong dog permit? And I asked that county, how did you do that? How can I implement that in Missoula? And I'm not going to mention who said it, but they said there's no way Missoula is going to do that because we will lose out on too much revenue. And that is a terrible reason to have to put that emotional struggle onto families. And then another issue that I'm really happy with Missoula City about is the Title 20 reform, because there's a lot of zoning regulation that I think minimizing lot size requirements and setback requirements and a lot of that stuff, I actually am happy that it's happening in Missoula.
Thank you, Sandra. Alan?
I think everybody would agree that we are over-legislated. I'm not running to be able to introduce new legislation. If we need to do anything, it's improve the laws that are currently on the books. And it's just like what Sandy said with the dog licenses. There's a law on the books, but we can improve it. So that's where I would zero in, because again, we're being over-regulated, especially when it gets into the housing. We talk about affordable housing, housing shortage, all the regulations that developers have to go through. What about them? And all that does is drive up the cost of the building, the cost of construction, and cost to the buyers. And I think everybody will agree there's a lot of people out there that cannot afford the housing that we're building, or they can't afford the rents with a lot of the units that we're building. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Amber.
Yeah, thanks. And so there are 3 things that kind of come to mind. The Inflation Reduction Act, which is a misnomer for a very good federal program on climate change mitigation, has just unprecedented amounts of money that are available to local municipalities. I think it's really important that we position ourselves to be competitive for this money. One of the programs in particular is sustainable building incentives for lower income housing. I think we need to really look into that, and I was happy to have sponsored a grant writing position for specifically for vehicle electrification and building for sustainable grants for the IRA funding. Code reform is another thing that I think we're going to have all sorts of ways to streamline development that are going to be coming forward. And I'm very interested in digging into MRA, workforce housing, the changes in legislation that allow us to invest in workforce housing.
Thank you. Each of you tonight have mentioned housing in some way, and a number of citizens have written in to ask questions specific to housing. What policy measures do you believe we could enact to create more affordable housing in our community with its growing demand for affordable housing? We begin, please. Alan.
One of the things that I already touched on is a lot of the permitting and things like that to lower the cost to the developer, the contractor, the builder, and ultimately the owner or occupier of that. But with the whole housing issue, the one thing you don't hear is we have a shortage of people working. We need more jobs. We need to be paying a better wage, a competitive wage. Right now, we don't know how many people work from home, but what we do know is a lot of these houses and units, people can't afford them. I mean, 800 square foot unit for $1,600 a month, plus if you have a car payment, people have to have 2 and 3 jobs. So it's not just about the housing, but it's getting people in a position to be able to afford the housing we have.
Thank you, Alan. Amber.
Yeah, thanks. So, there has been a national shortage of housing. We have not built enough housing as a country, particularly in towns like Missoula that have the problem has been exacerbated through COVID and through just being a place that people want to live. We had our vacancy rate at one point. It was 0.5%. A healthy market is, I think, about 3 or 4%. So we were gridlocked. I mean, I'm an empty nester. I could not have moved. My husband and I could not have moved out of our house if we'd wanted to. So I think that part of it is easing up that market. So we need more housing at every single level. We have 400 units of available housing or affordable housing coming online. I think we can do land banking. We can support the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. As I mentioned, workforce housing through MRA, partnering with housing nonprofits in our community, and code reform. Also, I'm trying to get all this in. There are incentive programs that we can advocate for on a state and federal level.
Thank you. Sean.
Thank you. So I think for me, like the biggest policy issue, if I make it onto City Council, will be the upcoming code reform and the ongoing growth policy that we're working on. Those, in my mind, are some of the most significant things in our near future. And one of the reasons why I felt compelled to run is to try and help ensure that we get that as right as we can. We have one opportunity here to do a great job by the developers and by our homeowners. A lot of the focus seems to go on developers and their needs, but there's also a missing link there that homeowners also need some changes so that they can rebuild a fence to keep the deer out. So you can redo your roof with your buddy who's a contractor and can help you. There's things that both sides of the equation need, and that to me is the number one policy and opportunity for this community to address housing at the local level.
Thank you, Sean. And Sandra.
Thank you for this question, and I'm not going to hide behind any fancy creative terminology. This is subsidized housing, workforce housing, affordable housing. That is all subsidized housing. That is using other people's taxpayer dollars to pay for to subsidize somebody else's housing. And so if you're proud of what you're doing, then we should actually call it how it is. It is subsidized housing. I agree with subsidized housing at a very minimal level. I think that it should be only used for the most vulnerable of our population. And that is not what is being used for at the moment. To actually make affordable housing, that means houses that are affordable for people that are actually living in the Missoula municipality. And that means that we cannot have 9 to 12 months to get a building permit, because in that 9 to 12 months, prices could skyrocket. The prices of cement, the prices of lumber, everything can skyrocket. And when you are based off of a certain budget, and then all of a sudden you're being delayed because of a council vote, and then all of a sudden you're bankrupt and you were relying on that, all of those prices are not going to be eaten by the developer. They're going to be eaten by the renter and by the homeowner.
Okay. Thank you. How should our community deal with the housing issues you've addressed? How should we deal with people who have active addictions to drugs and alcohol or mental health problems and lack housing? Please begin, Sandra.
So I've been very vocal about this. I do believe that the minority of the homeless individuals are the ones that are creating the majority of the problems. And I do believe that addiction is a real problem that does need to be dealt with. And I was asked this by a news media outlet the other day at the Johnson Street Open House Shelter. If I had a magic wand, I was queen of the world, how would I deal with this crisis? I would put more funding into rehabilitation programs and mental illness programs. However, I do not have a wand, and I am not queen of the world. So I think that what we should do to help expose those vulnerable Missoulians is to enact our actual laws that are on the books, criminalize the criminal behavior, the defecation on the sidewalks, the open drug use, the masturbating in front of children in parks. That is something that happens. And we need to actually enact those laws so that the transients will not see Missoula as a welcoming community for crime, they will move along, and then the truly exposed Missoulians, the vulnerable community members of our area, will be available. Will have those resources available for them.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Sean.
Thank you. Oh yes, this is a challenging topic, I think, for a lot of people. So I think some of the ways that we address these issues is by making sure that everybody has access to the different facilities that are available to them. We've got to create a system that brings people in and helps them find the right path for whatever it is that they're facing. Maybe it's just work. Maybe it's significant addictions. And, the deeper the addiction goes, the greater the struggle. I also think a recent idea I've heard about is that we need, in my opinion, we need to maybe make our shelters smaller so that we can channel people to different areas and we're not conglomerating people with lots of different health issues. This is not just a mental health issue, it's a healthcare issue as a nation. And we've got to start working at it from that respect. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Amber?
Couldn't remember who went next. So, I really think the question is, as the two before me have said, is about homelessness. And it is a national crisis. It is not just Missoula. It is a state-wide problem as well. As I indicated earlier, we have underbuilt, and nationally, we have underfunded mental health care. In the middle of an opioid crisis, we have underfunded substance abuse programs. We have also, in this city in particular, we have a problem with our wages not having kept up with our home prices. So I think as some of the work that we're doing on the Missoula Economic Partnership Board is trying to create jobs that actually can afford some of the housing here, but easing up the housing market, making more rental units available. We need to build. We're not going to build our way out of this problem, but we do need to build.
Thank you. Alan?
Well, I echo everything that you just heard, so that's going to save me some time because 1 minute goes fast. What I would be a proponent of is we need to study what's happened in Bergen County, New Jersey, and subsequent to that, what happened to the vet in Rockford, Illinois. Those two counties have virtually zero homeless. They've licked the problem, and what they've done is they've set up like a central clearing agency. They have one person in charge, one organization that we have over 500 nonprofits here in town. And what they do is they track every homeless person that's on the street, and they do a monthly census of these people and track how they're doing. And a lot of them, they get jobs. A lot of them, they work with different agencies to get them in housing. So it can be done, but it's going to take time. It will take a couple of years and take some money, but there's some success stories out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Besides housing services, what other current city services are priorities for you, a citizen asks. They want to know, how do you expect to trim Missoula's budget when all services are needing and requesting bigger budgets for a growing community? Please be specific with a couple of ideas. Would you begin, please, Amber?
Sure. So, I first want to say that our tax system is broken. And I know that some people say that we're blaming it on the legislature, but honestly, that is where the blame needs to go. There has been a burden shift over the last 20 years. We used to be in a situation that residential property taxes made up about 40% of the overall tax, and the rest, the other 60%, was either centrally assessed properties or corporate properties. It is now about 65% on the residential property owner. The legislature failed to turn those dials down and adjust, and we are feeling the effects of it. Corporate tax breaks are falling on our shoulders, and we should be angry about it. If you're not angry, you should be. I do think that I am continuing to advocate for a tourism tax, but I think the real thing would be to have the legislature start dialing back the number of tax credits that they were giving to corporations and dial back. Dang, I didn't get to specifics, but that's it.
Thank you, Amber. Allen.
I think we can trim the budget quite a bit. I would be a proponent of, we don't need a lobbyist to spend $100,000 worth of taxpayer money for a lobbyist in Helena. I think we have a great university here. Why aren't we using the university to do these studies that we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for out-of-state, quote, experts to come here to tell us what we want to hear? I think we should be using the university a lot more. And I'll tell you, when it comes to taxes, you have my email, you have my phone number. I can give you the geocode of this one. The Quest Building, it's on Mount or 14th and Russell, 4.5 acres of city property. You know what the value of that property is? Zero. Do you know what they pay in taxes? Zero. Meanwhile, we're taxing the old lady that's been in her house. She's a widow, and we're taxing her out of her house and with nowhere to go.
Thank you. Sandra.
Thanks. I have to politely disagree with my colleague. While our tax system is broken, we are a legislative body and we can deal with our problems that we see fit here. Yes, there is a huge problem in the state. However, Kalispell was able to lower their property taxes by almost the exact same amount that we raised ours. So obviously it is a spending issue. And like the interim mayor said, he looked at only raising property taxes 5%. And it wouldn't be trimming the fat. It would be like amputating a limb. Maybe we need to amputate a limb because people are getting taxed out of their homes. Grandmas, young families, everyone is just, they cannot stay in their homes because the property taxes are out of control. And I have been to Helena 4 times this year, not on property taxpayer dollars, because I advocated for bills that I truly thought mattered to me, and I spent my own dime or went with friends or family to go over there to advocate without having a lobbyist. I actually testified against the lobbyist that was paid for by property tax dollars, and I actually testified against the League of Cities and Towns, which we are also a member of. I would be happy to go into that further, but I ran out of time.
Thank you. And Sean.
Thanks. So I definitely think that there's probably some room within our key city services to find rooms within our budget to maybe make some cuts. One of my tactics for that is talking to people. People usually within the department have some of the best ideas on how to tackle the issues they're facing. The people on the, driving the trucks. So that would be one place that I would seek advice, what they think about it. I have some of my own ideas. I often wonder about the idling city's vehicles, particularly the police cars. As much as I support police officers, I often wonder why their cars are idling for long periods of time and what that costs us in fuel. So I think there's ideas and there's small things we can get at. And then at the same time, I also agree that we've got to push and get the states and the feds to stand up and do their fair share. You can see the trend. You can see the trend in declining budget support for municipalities from those state and federal entities and our increasing taxes. It's very easy to see. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. An audience member submitted a question that is related to a number of the issues we've talked about tonight. It's very specific. Would you support increased funding for our new mobile support team? The team that can be called to help people having a mental health crisis. Sean, if you'd like to jump into the fray, please.
Absolutely, thank you. I definitely support on the face increased funding for the mobile support team. I recognize as a former first responder the enormous good that it's doing and what it's alleviating for the police department and the fire department. And with that being said, I think it's also going to be very challenging for us to find ways to keep that within the budget. I don't necessarily disagree with Sandra that we've got to make some hard decisions. We've got to take and keep in mind that there are a lot of people faced with moving out of their homes, and particularly within our seniors, and that's not okay. And it's not that I want to cut a program to save some people, but we've got to be making some decisions that are going to be really tough. And I don't know how we go about that. So I can't give blanket support to something, but I do wholeheartedly support that program.
Thank you. Sandra?
So last November, there was the Crisis Services mill levy, and it was voted down. And a lot of my colleagues and the mayor have said, oh, but it was voted down in the county, not in the city. However, it was on the ballot, and it was voted down. So therefore, I will not be in support of increasing taxes to support the mobile support team. However, if you did a good argument and then there was some shifting around and then we defunded a different program to fund that, I would be open to the conversation. However, that would still have the tax increase at the same amount. So I don't know if I would be open to that. I would be open to the conversation about it, but if I had to do a blanket yes or no, no.
All right, thank you, Sandra. Alan?
I am all in favor of the mobile support team and funding it, but where do you get the money from? It's just what I said. There's areas we need to cut. We need to get rid of. We need to be able to pay Peter by robbing Paul. And again, Sandy, in the last budget cycle, she introduced, I think there was 8 pieces to reduce the budget, and all of them, without exception, were voted down. And to me, it was things we didn't need. That money could have gone right to the mobile support team without raising more of the people's taxes. Thanks.
Thank you all. The League and...
I didn't answer.
Amber, forgive me. Amber.
I love the mobile support team. It has saved us money. I've voted for the funding that we have for it. I will continue to vote for it. I don't know if we're going to have enough money to increase that. I want to say that I think that there are a lot of promises being made in campaigns about cutting taxes, and it's not going to happen unless we have tax reform. We can do some priority-based budgeting that I think will probably help us focus. We're going to have on some certain areas that we do want to prioritize in the city, but I absolutely think that we are going to have a very, very tough budgeting season. I want to remind you that the city's portion of your tax bill is 1/3 of your tax bill. The rest is the county and the schools. Of that, police, fire, and collective bargaining agreements are the large majority. Almost with all of that, it's probably over 75%. You add in roads, there's just these projects, and even the things that Sandy brought forward to cut would have made a 10-cent per year or per month difference in your tax bill. So real tax reform has to happen for you to even be able to tell a difference with inflation.
Okay. Thank you, Amber. The League and the Office of Neighborhoods is so grateful for your time tonight, and you've given us a lot of food for thought. We'd now like to give each of you 2 minutes to sum up your thoughts and to offer anything you wish you would have been asked to tonight's audience. The order is going to be Alan, then Amber, then Sean, and finally Sandra. Would you like to begin, please, Alan?
Yes, and again, I'd like to thank you for giving us this opportunity. There's a lot been said tonight, so I'm not going to add to it. One of the areas that we didn't talk about is the TIF, tax increment financing. And this is one area, if I get elected, that I'm going to zero in on, because there's really something wrong when we take taxpayer money and we put it in a special fund that this body here has no say in how that money's spent. And then you find out that right now the Missoula Redevelopment Agency is giving $10 million back to the city. That money would have, that's TIF money, and again, that comes out of your taxes to go to the schools, the fire department, and the police. So they take it out of this slush fund, and now they want to give it back, or they have to give it back to account for shortfalls. There's a lot of things wrong in the way we administrate the TIF funding. TIF, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I was totally against it. And since I've testified about it in Helena, what I've come to learn is it's a good tool if used correctly. And there's smaller cities and towns in Montana that are using this the way it's designed, and just like a lot of other states are using this. However, in Missoula, it's being abused, especially when you see that the council has to ask for $10 million back to spend it on things that it should have been spent for. So that's one area, we could have talked quite a bit about. But otherwise, I just want to say thank you for this great opportunity.
Thank you, Ellen. Amber.
Yeah, thanks. I feel like I've been speed talking, trying to get all my points in, and now I've got 2 minutes. I'm going to keep talking about taxes because I think that this is something that is our tax structure is misunderstood. I have been pushing for a tourism tax since I started on council 4 years ago. That will require the legislature lifting the population cap that right now says, I don't know what it is, maybe 5,000 communities with 5,000 or less people. That would give us the opportunity for our voters to decide what we want to tax. It would give us revenue from tourism. We have, I don't want to misquote it, but it's well over 1 million people coming to this town every year, maybe 3 times that. It's very, very high. They are driving on our roads. They are crawling in and out of our rivers, hiking on our trails. They are using our emergency services. No one has ever said, I'm not going on a vacation because they have taxes or they don't have taxes. I think, that's, again, something we can't do yet. The increase in our city budget was 9.7%. Of that was a $6.3 million increase. Wages for our workers were 56% of that. There was a baseline increase for, inflation of that was 6%. Our encampment response was 6.5%, and security in the neighborhoods for those areas was 10%. So, we are. The majority of our increase was due to things that we need in our community. If you have police, fire, roads, and as I said, the collective bargaining agreements, that's our budget. These pet projects that people are talking about are such a minute amount of money in comparison that even if we cut everyone out and every one of them out, it would make a negligible difference in your taxes.
Thank you, Amber. Sean.
Great, thank you. And just also want to take a minute to thank everybody again for being here and joining us online and for you guys organizing this tonight. There's so many things to talk about and so many issues in front of all of us today that it's hard to want to try and pick one to address at this point in time. I think what I'd like to close with is what I am interested in and what I am hoping to do by getting on city council is start to bring some of what we all know America is, and that is a lot more of unity and working together and finding our commonalities and putting those at the forefront. Those are my priorities. I am not a really pessimistic person. I don't look at us as crumbling or failing. I see us as the strong people that we have been for a couple centuries now, and that what I hope to bring to City Council is the belief in that and the willingness to start to focus on that, and through that finding collaboration and working together so that we can address these issues, because we've demonstrated to ourselves time and time again throughout our history as a nation that we can tackle just about anything when we come together and we unite and we work on it. And so that's where I am coming from in wanting to get on to City Council, is to help bring people together so that we can find our commonalities, so that we can drum up ideas and then work on those ideas. And so that's what I would like to bring to things, and those are the background and the leadership that I have been given from this great nation have helped me foster those things. So that's what I'd like to close with. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And Sandra?
He really hit the nail on the head there. I disagree with some of his policies, but we both have a great love for America and our unity and working together. And I have to absolutely agree. He has a great farm. His strawberries are delicious, and our kids get along great. So I just wanted to close by something that was said today is it's just such a small reduction, so minuscule. Why even bother? Why go to a produce sale? It's just a few cents, just a few dollars. Why even bother? Why go to Costco to get gas? It's all the way across town. Why even bother with that? Because it all adds up. People are struggling. These are real people in real homes that are really about to lose their house, that are really concerned about it. Everybody at this forum and all the other forums, I imagine, have said that the biggest concern are property taxes. So why even bother trying to even reduce them just a little bit? I disagree. I think that we should try to reduce them at least just a little bit. I would prefer more, but like I said, compromise is a real thing, and you do have to compromise. And if you are proud of your decisions that you are making on council and the policies and the resolutions and the programs that you are funding, be proud of it. Don't hide behind the legislature for it. Don't blame somebody else, because we do have a spending problem. We obviously think that this program or this study is more important than the streets or the fire department or the police department or the roads or all these other things. Obviously, that is more important. So if you're very proud of it, just be proud. I said that at the budget meeting. I would highly recommend people go and watch that meeting, because I did get a little emotional. I was really frustrated at it, but I still stand by what I said. If you want a questioning voice, if you want somebody to ask why things are being spent on, why this money is going there, then please vote for me. If you don't, then vote for Sean. Actually, he probably will be questioning too. But I have always brought an encouraging and questioning voice to council. So I would really like to keep my job. But if you don't like me, please go out and vote, because this is the primary had a very poor turnout.
All right. Thank you, Sandra. Well, Alan Ault, Amber Sherrill, Sean Patrick McCoy, and Sandra Vasecka, the League of Women Voters and the Office of Neighborhoods thanks you so much for your presence tonight, for your honesty, your answers and time, and most of all, for your willingness to serve the city of Missoula. The public here can make its own voices heard and help shape the future of the community by joining local neighborhood councils. And they can be visited online at MissoulaNeighborhoods.org or by calling Kalina Pritchard with the Neighborhoods Office for information. November 7 is Election Day. This will be an all mail-in election, as was mentioned. Ballots have already been mailed to voters. Ballots may be returned in the mail or in person to the Missoula County Elections Office, but must be received at the Missoula County Elections Office by Election Day, November 7, 2023 at 8 p.m. One must be registered to vote and be listed as an active voter on the registration rolls in order to receive a ballot. Anyone who did not receive a ballot or is not registered to vote should immediately contact the Missoula County Elections Office. For additional information about all candidates, including these, we refer you to the nonpartisan online election resource, vote411.org. That's vote411.org. On behalf of the Missoula League of Women Voters and the Office of Neighborhoods, thank you all for joining us this evening. Remember, our votes count. Your vote counts. Thank you. Nice job. Besides, I forget to call on candidates. I could not have done it without someone sitting there, Mary. I couldn't even do that. Oh my goodness. I'm so grateful you were so organized. Oh my.